Welcome to Beyond the Bottom Line Mailbag, the business podcast where your questions shape the conversation, where we dive into mailbag to answer your biggest questions from the past episodes. Whether you're building a business, leading a team, or just trying to work smarter, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
Hey everyone, and hello and welcome to Beyond the Bottom Line. Now, this isn't a normal episode, and you're going to see me do a couple of these a month where we actually now are starting to get questions. I'm surprised. So for those of you that know me, I am a huge movie fan, and Grosse Pointe Blank is one of my favorite movies of all time. If you've never seen it, I encourage you, go watch it. Grosse Pointe Blank. So I'm going to go a little Grosse Pointe Blank on our first opener when I say, these are questions that find their way into my inbox between consulting calls, podcast edits, and screaming into the void about ATS systems. It's mailbag time. Let's unpack the chaos. So if you've never seen the movie,
I love it. I love it.
That's why I owed to you, Mini Driver.
I love it.
Welcome back, Grosse Pointer. So let's get into it. For those of you who have not seen her before, welcome Adrienne Ruthhart from ACR Ventures. Adrienne is my marketing team, my podcast editing team, my producer, my everything. She has been with me from the start. So Adrienne, welcome to the mailbag.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. We have gotten so many questions since you started recording the podcast, people following up, wanting some more information. And so I think we have a lot of really good questions for you to answer today. If we don't get through all of them, send us your questions. You can do it through social, through email. We'll follow up and answer the questions one-on-one, but we have some really good ones that we think people could really benefit from. So I'm excited about this episode and diving in and getting some of these questions answered.
I'm anxious to go. I was shocked that we got, especially with the relaunch coming out, all of a sudden there's a lot more downward than the original episodes with some really great guests. So I'm eager to get into it, and I'm going to have a question at the end for everyone listening back. I keep the conversation going. So let's get into it.
We know AI is like just the talk of the town in every type business AI. So we got a lot of really good AI questions that, you know, we think people can really benefit from. But first off, let's get into it. You said, Ron, that AI is a great assistant, but a terrible decision maker. So what's the first thing companies need to fix before they implement AI into their recruiting workflow?
Yeah, this is a really good question. And I'm going to speak directly from experience on this. Is you need to update all of your candidate data in your ATS. Because let's be honest, the AI works on matching. And if you look through your ATS, everything flows into it. The ATS in most cases is not the decision maker. It's a store of data that you are easily able to manipulate to get to the right people and utilize your AI and tech to keep in constant contact with them. But the mistake that is being made is recruiters do not update candidate information. They don't add enough skills. They don't update candidate skills. They don't add work history. They don't add context. So, and then your ATS system sometimes, because when we cut and we rip and we reduce, we're cutting out people with the knowledge base, the tribal knowledge, as I call it, of how that system is set up, and it is squared to go. So there's not updates being done. So you have recruiters on one hand that are trying to update, but don't have adequate skills that match today's market, today's candidates terminology. And then you have others that just don't get there and update it. So your matching tool, when your AI comes in, whatever system you're choosing to use, is reading your database. So it's only as good as what is in there or what you put in there or what you're updating. If you don't start there and really kind of cutting it and saying, we need to do a deep dive into our database, we need to categorize them, we need to ensure they're still there. So they're trying to be able to get them updated for your bench candidates, you know what I'm talking about, and get those things there, your tools are already going to be working behind and you're get the matching that you think you should.
Yeah. So that's step one. You have to clean up the data because it's crawling the data. And if the data isn't accurate, it's worthless.
Yep.
Essentially.
Exactly. Imagine logging into Amazon to search sneakers and they don't ever update, new pairs from like Nike or Adidas or whatever. It's just the same like 5 pairs.
Sure.
That's what you're doing with your ATS.
Yeah. So when it comes to, we had some questions come in about like blind resume sampling and quality checking. So if people are relying on those tools, what's your take on the idea of that blind sampling and using that as one of their quality checks?
So, and I'm hoping I'm going to address the question correctly. And the person who dropped it, if I don't, please, send us a comment so I can. But here would be my take on blind resumes. And I say this in all of my trainings. I say this in a lot of the things we put about the company. As a leader, if you are not creating at least 1 or 2, I don't care if you use ChatGPT, DeepSeek, or a resume builder, you should be creating a resume for 1 or 2 of your most common jobs for yourself and inputting it as a candidate to see what happens.
Okay.
That journey, because you're going to know then as a blind resume going in, is the tech working? If you know you've created something that qualifies you, are you not getting any feedback? Are you getting what you see online on LinkedIn every day of, I've applied to 800 jobs and I've never heard from 782 of them. You've heard that directly from me, from my experience, and you see it every day.
Yeah.
Is the tech working? And is number 2, the matching working on it for your rank index? That's the true value of that blind resume on the outside. And that's something that, listen, as a consultant, you want to know what that's like. That's what we do. That's how we start the process when we engage companies to evaluate where we need to start with your recruiting team on training and updating, because we need to know what your tech isn't doing for you.
So what is another great question we got? So you've told us about step 1 and kind of where the base is, but what happens if a company, what is the cost of a poorly implemented AI in recruiting, and how does that impact the bottom line? Because we've said, okay, you have to start with step 1, but what if people don't start with step 1? What if, they're not listening and they're trying to have like the quick fix, and what can scrape this data quickly?
So I'm going to answer that in a couple different parts. Let me start at the field level first. For the system that's just been implemented, the way we implement these things, right? Because everyone listening is like, oh no, we did that. We did our UV testing. We did this. We did that. We had everybody. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You got behind. You didn't know how stuff was connected. Not everything worked the right way. And you pushed it in a virtual training and expecting everyone to learn. Yeah. So in most cases, probably 50 or 60% of the tools are really the functionalities utilized, and the other 50 or 40% isn't. So the cost of that, and think about this in terms of, I'm just going to go baseline agency staffing first. If it is missing 20 hires a week, just 20 hires a week, figure, I always use the formula. I never have an agency staffing use 40 hours a week as a formula. It's 32. That's 720 hours a week times your average pay and bill on a markup of 30%, $16,248 of revenue a week.
Wow.
A week on 20 people on the agency side, right? Okay. And that's just the staffing piece of what you're probably missing in terms of connecting and filling overall. That's not including your lost time to fill, and that's not including your refills. Now let's back it up a notch to the big numbers, okay? As a company, when you do this, you're making a heavy investment in the tool to begin with. Most of these tools, depending on your size, let's go moderate size. An investment like this could easily be $75,000 in a moderate size company for a tool like this to get the tech, get the access, the support, the number of seats you need, the tie-in with your ATS. That's just generally the cost of the tool and that time from your vendor. Now you have the cost of time in your IT department, putting it together, doing the interlays, putting the plugins in, the AI speak, getting the APIs to talk. then your UA testing time, then your time in testing each of the facets. So you have field time in there, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you from experience, because I have seen this firsthand done poorly twice.
Wow.
Against my advice of how we were doing this and rushing it out. The tool just flat out failed. You lose buy-in from your field teams from day one because it's not doing what you said it was going to do. You wind up losing that entire cost. I mean, you could wind up being, I have seen this twice where basically the damn thing was shelved in less than a year to come back to, and you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars that you don't get back. And then, Adrienne, you'll appreciate this. And this is something that it was a light bulb for me the second time around doing this. Marketing is missed in every step of this facet.
Sure. Yeah.
We're not advertising what we're doing. We're not putting out anything for buy-in for the teams in the field. We're not putting anything out for buy-ins for the people in our databases.
Mm-hmm.
Marketing is an afterthought in that entire implementation process.
For sure.
It's a huge miss.
Yeah. I mean, those numbers are shocking.
Yeah.
And then you go through all of that and then you don't have the buy-in of your team. And now you put in all of this time and money for a system that's not being utilized.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think of it this way. If you go back to the days of the digital app, when everyone needed to have a digital app because the way of the future was going to be gig work, where your info was in, you pick and choose your jobs, where it could go. I've seen one company do that well. And everybody has spent tens and 20s and 50s of thousands of dollars creating these apps and the time and energy to roll it out. And most of them are sitting here on our phones, not being used anymore.
So we got a really good questions though about just utilization and the team utilizing it. So one great question we have was based on bias, and you've talked about how if the data isn't accurate and kind of how it's filtering. So one great question we had was, you mentioned bias in and bias out. How should companies audit their systems for unintentional AI bias right now?
So one, there's a lot of really great tools out there that you can actually purchase for cheap prices. Make sure reputable companies, with DEI initiatives, have good anti-bias training, because most bias is I'm going to probably get this term wrong. Inherent. It's not intentional.
Yeah.
Right? And here's what I mean by that. And here's the biggest culprit of bias in AI is the average job description online is over 7 years old.
Wow.
Now, people will say you're full of shit. No, I'm not. Go to Indeed, go to ASA, go to Leap Consulting and look at formal presentations and data. This is why the average job description is over 7 years old. Recruiters are not taught how to do a proper intake and do a proper job description. So what do? They get a job description from a customer and they copy and they paste it.
Yeah.
And those job descriptions from customers, and those in HR appreciate this. You're already understaffed and you don't have the time. And those job descriptions could be 8, 9, 10 years old.
Well, do they think though that the job's still the same, so the job description's the same? Do they
For
just
the most part,
is it because they think that the job is the same, like the job is the job is the job, and it hasn't evolved?
and especially that happens a lot in smaller companies where, but this is how we've always done it. We don't have the time or the staff. The job's the job. They've been doing the same thing. And they're not. Tech is involved. The job is evolved. The product has changed. It's different. And there's different skills.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get updated. So now you're giving it to an agency. You're giving it to a recruiter. They're copying and they're pasting, right? And if you look at some of this stuff, and this is something that we've talked about over the years. I've talked about in my advanced recruiting classes. I think it was, and I'm ballparking the fact that I don't have my presentation up in front of me right now, but 68% of somewhere around that, but somewhere between 60 and 70% of women deselect applying for a role based on availability after work.
Mm-hmm.
And is she in the job? Because some of these jobs will say, instead
Interesting.
of he, she, or instead of leaving it vague, it will say he.
Interesting.
And think about this for working moms, single moms, right? Married moms. When you start to see that after work hours or part of the perks are cocktail hours and dinners,
Mhm.
like, do
Yeah.
you say to yourself, like, that's what I want to get into?
Yeah.
What does that say? And in today's world, that speaks a whole lot different than it did 10 years ago.
Mhm.
You know, 70% of minorities deselect the job based on one line: must speak English.
Why?
Must they? Because you know what that means to a minority? It means that if English isn't their first language, or they have an accent, they don't apply.
Wow.
Because they're afraid. They're afraid they're already going to be told no. So they
Mhm.
don't. They go right past it. These are not numbers I'm pulling out of my ass. These are facts that I've pulled
Yeah.
from reputable resources. And that's the bias that we're talking about, is the things that we look at. Names. Your AI learns. So if you start skimming over uncommon names, AI learns that about you.
You know, my background is in real estate and construction. And so I appreciate what you're saying from that perspective. Is if I was, back in that field and I see a job description and it's all he, I don't know that I would look at that and read that and think, oh, this is the job for me. Whether or not I could do it, whether all things aside, if I don't feel like I'm the type of candidate they're looking for, if I don't feel like I have a shot in hell for it, that makes sense. And I do appreciate, as a working parent, as a mom of 2 kids, I can understand that as well. I guess you don't think about it. Why is a perk after hours? Why do I have to feel like if I don't entertain clients or if I don't go out to happy hours and pizza parties and all of these things that I'm going to be taken seriously for the role? So those are excellent points.
I'll close that question out with this. And for agency recruiters, here's the example I've always used when I've trained in light industrial jobs. And I saw this same thing for a front end cashier role. It wasn't called cashiers, I had customer service agents. So it was at one of the big box stores at the front, running the register. One of the few ones left. Must be able to lift, move, and manipulate up to and over 50 pounds by themselves. So if you saw that for, just say you're looking for part-time work, Adrienne, just looking for something to do on the weekends, and you saw that in a cashier role, is that something you would apply to?
No.
Why?
If I'm going to be in a customer service role, my thought is I would understand if I would need to stand or sit for a certain number of hours. I would be concerned that I wouldn't be able to perform the function of the role. Like those who are coming out of retirement or those who are older, who might have a medical condition that shouldn't or wouldn't impact that particular role, that could be alarming.
Well, in any type of role, anything at 50 pounds or over is considered legally by OSHA a team lift. 2 people. So in these jobs, my question for people that always say that is, well, in that job, how many times a day are they lifting 50 pounds by themselves?
Right.
Well, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 times. So unless they can do it all the time, even though they only need to do it 2 or 3 times, you won't talk to someone unless they can physically do that all the time. And are you regularly letting people lift 50 pounds or more by themselves? Well, no, that's a team lift. Okay. So do they really
So then why does it matter? They don't need to lift 50 pounds.
Bingo.
Yeah.
I was saying, unless you are unloading a trailer by yourself on a dock, there is absolutely no need for that verbiage ever. It's disqualifying, and then it starts to pick up bias.
Right.
It's unintentional.
And you're not getting the best people for the job.
You're missing great qualified candidates that won't turn over, that want that job, that aren't applying for it.
Yeah.
Bullshit in, bullshit out.
Yeah. Makes sense.
You get what you do.
Yeah. All right. Last question. So I like this one because it has a little Ronism in it, which as the editor of your podcast, I love when a good Ronism comes through. So when you talk about recruiters hiring like they're shopping the poultry aisle, what's the fix? And how do we get recruiters to stop bulk filtering humans like product?
I am extremely passionate about this one. And this is a good question. Recruiting is generally a very reactive thing, unless you're a professional recruiter. And listen, I have seen plenty of professional recruiters over the last year or two that say, just go to our internal job board and let us know when you see something of interest. It's becoming a dying art. So if you want to be a good recruiter, you want to separate yourself out as being the recruiter of choice in your marketplace, right? Or the company of recruiting of choice in your vertical. Build a bench, a proactive bench of candidates. Get down to your core skill sets. What do you do? How well do you do it? How many people do you need in there realistically to market, fill, and bill those orders? And be able to accurately keep contact with them, because people are a product that are sitting there on a shelf until they're no longer valid and they get thrown away. But that's what we tend to do in recruiting. All of a sudden, oh my God, we haven't had an order for forklift operators in like a month, and now I need 10 of them. Let me run to the poultry aisle. Here's my 10 coming out of my, we have 500 of them. Why can't you fill it? Because we never maintain contact with these guys and go, are you available? Are you looking? Have you gotten a new equipment experience? What do you need in order to leave? We have zero. It is on demand. Are you interested? Yes. Great. Go to work. You're not? I'm done with you. Build a bench. I teach recruiting. Number one, building a proactive bench. What are your top 5 skill sets? How many diversions of those skills are there? Like forklift operators, again, how many different types of forklifts are there? Your professional forklift, staffer, and light industrial. Well, there's 18 types of forklifts with 27 different attachments. Do you know what each of them are? Do you know all the brands? Do you know what they do? Do you know that the levers are different? Do you know they operate different? What are indoor? What are outdoor? What can be switched? What's gas? What's electric? Are you really a light industrial forklift recruiter? No, you just. So what are your skills? Don't give a recruiter more than 2 or 3 when they're starting. Let them become professionals in that. What is their true target number, right? Because we see the mass recruiting going on out there all the time, because unless I have candidates coming in to add to my database, my job's in jeopardy. Companies, stop that shit, right? What do you really need?
Yeah.
You need X amount. Now work with your recruiters on building proactive communication lines with those. It is much easier to fill to a pool than it is to fill to the jobs. And your recruiters suddenly become changed. They're not sitting in the office all day long behind a desk. They're getting to know your customers and the nuances. They're getting to know the people. They're reducing your turnover because you're out there, and their bench can accurately be followed and managed because you're managing to your pool number, not to your database number. And think about how that empowers your sales team. Or you go out as a salesperson and articulately say to this customer base, I can have you 10 qualified operators. I have 2 programmers with SQR experience waiting to go.
Yeah.
That's a power
They
of
have a
people.
bench. Yeah.
Yeah. You build the bench.
Yeah.
That's what you got to change.
Yeah.
But that's where I begin in helping to build or rebuild or train recruiters.
I love these were really great questions. I encourage anyone who has follow-up questions from these, email us, contact us through social, through LinkedIn, through Instagram, through Facebook. If you have any questions, follow-up questions from this episode or others, we'll be here to answer those. So I think these are really great questions.
Well, and I'm going to close out with a question of my own, Adrienne. This goes out to everyone listening. This is for recruiters, leaders, and founders. Have you ever applied through your own ATS and see what the experience is? Tell us what happened and what you learned. I'd love to hear what happened and what you learned, because there is power in knowledge. So if you had a great experience or you changed something, share it, because helping each other in this industry is what we have.
That's an excellent question.
Awesome. Well, Adrienne, thank you for jumping in, and everybody else, thank you for tuning in as we go through one of these first mailbags. And that's it for this week's mailbag. So keep those questions coming, especially the messy ones, because the only dumb questions is the ones you never ask and don't send me. What are your business burns quietly in the background?
That's a wrap on this week's mailbag episode. If your question didn't make it on air, don't worry, we've got more coming. Keep sending them in at elevate-talent-solutions.net or find us on our socials. Until next time, keep asking bold questions and keep building smarter.